Mr. Gorbachev, open this gate. Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
All right, welcome back to the Kudlow Report, everyone. I'm Larry Kudlow. At the top of this half hour, there he goes again. I love it. He saved America. He saved the world. Now, to continue our happy 100th birthday celebration to Ronald Reagan, let's get some thoughts from our distinguished panel. Here now is Judy Kudlow. Yes, my bride. But under President Reagan, she held a number of key positions, including the White House Speakers Bureau Director. She was Deputy Justice Department Press Secretary, and she was also Director of Public Affairs at the Federal Trade Commission. Also with us, Steve Moore, the Wall Street Journal editorial board, author of Return to Prosperity. Steve worked in the Reagan administration as OMB Research Director for the Office of Privatization. And Craig Shirley, president of Shirley and Banister Public Affairs, author of Rendezvous with Destiny. I'm Larry Kudlow, a former Associate Director of Economics and Planning in Reagan's Office of Management and Budget. Just thought I'd put that in there. Okay, Craig Shirley, let me start with you. On Reagan's 100th birthday, I love this. What is your first thought? What is your first reminiscence?
Well, my first reminiscence is first of all, I'm delighted to be here in Santa Barbara and being part of the Reagan celebration at the library and foundation. I think that as I reflect back on the 1980 campaign and what was at stake in America was that we were losing a Cold War. Our economy was collapsing. He was confronted with the second greatest economic calamity since the Great Depression, and in some ways had it even worse than FDR because he also had high interest rates and high taxes, high inflation and interest rates to contend with, along with high unemployment. And he brought a fusion in America. He brought about a new spirit in America. I'm not so sure that he saved America per se, but I think he saved America's belief in itself and America's belief in the future.
Well, sweetheart, I think he did save America, and I also think he saved the world. Now, you worked there. You actually worked longer than I did. You worked into his second term. I only worked in the first term. What are you thinking tonight as we talk about Reagan's 100th birthday?
Well, I think the first thing that comes to mind when I see these clips is how much I miss him still, because he was a great man, and I believe he did save the country. And I remember what it was like in those first 2 years when we were beginning what became the Reagan Revolution. And I had been in Washington working for a while as a lobbyist, and I'd been through the Carter years when Carter basically declared that it wasn't possible to govern America, and he was doing the best he could, and it wasn't very good. We had, double-digit inflation, double-digit unemployment, and it was a very scary time. And I remember, I think it was the end of '82 when unemployment hit double digits, and I remember feeling palpably afraid. And I think a lot of people in the White House felt afraid. And I remembered one night looking out from my office across West Exec Avenue to the West Wing and thinking about the president and thinking, he hasn't wavered, he hasn't shrunk from this. He believes that this supply-side economics plan for the country will work. And I remember thinking what courage he must have, that he was bucking us all up. And I think there were only two people in the White House then that actually believed it could work, and it was the president and a guy upstairs named Larry Kudlow.
Steve Moore, I got to hold down on that one. Steve Moore, my friend, Reagan's economic program, much derided in 1981 and 1982, did unleash a multi-decade prosperity. I want to ask you, speaking personally and looking back on this period, do you think his ideas of free markets and lower tax rates, did that wind up working better than we thought it would?
Well, first of all, I'll tell you what I think, Larry. I think we've been putting the wrong Kudlow in front of the camera for the last couple of years. Yes. Judy, it's just great to be with you. Look, I am a Reagan baby. I'm part of that generation, Craig, of people who grew up. I was a teenager and then in college when Reagan became president, and all I knew about him was that he was going to blow up the planet and he was a warmonger. And then I remember so vividly that 1980 debate that he had with Jimmy Carter. And I remember you used the line, Larry, that, well, there he goes again. And every time he said that, I had an epiphany, Larry, after that debate was over. I said, oh my God, I agree with everything this man is saying. It was an incredible communication skill that Ronald Reagan had. And Judy mentioned an important point, Larry, about Reaganomics, which is there weren't very many economists who thought this was going to work. I would bet 80% of the academic economists said this was voodoo economics. It was not going to revive the economy. It was going to make things worse. And the real tribute to Reaganomics and how the president turned around the American economy is Reaganomics is happening everywhere in the world today, Larry. I mean, tax rates are lower almost in every country as other countries saw the boom that happened in America and they got on the program.
Craig Shirley, that's an interesting point. In today's period, today's time, what can we learn from Ronald Reagan that is applicable today? And it's sort of an interesting point because President Obama has been using Reagan's name and read a Reagan biography during the Christmas holiday. What can Reagan teach us today?
Well, first of all, that doesn't make President Obama a Reaganite. I think one of the most important things to learn about Ronald Reagan is the practicality of idealism, a belief in yourself, a faith and a belief in the American people. I don't want to be the odd man out when everybody's saying that he saved the country, and I'm not saying he didn't save the country, but if a country has no future, then there is no country, and that's what he saved. He understood American exceptionalism because he lived American exceptionalism. He understood that for a country to progress and move forward, it has to have a confident, self-confident people. And in order for that, then that creates a flourishing economy. And with a flourishing economy, you can have a muscular foreign policy. You can protect your own people. You can protect the freedom and security of your own people and the oppressed peoples of the world. The litany of Reagan accomplishments is astonishing if you think about it. Not just the Berlin Wall falling, but millions behind the Warsaw Pact, behind the Iron Curtain, free, where statues assassination plots were once hatched against Ronald Reagan. Now statues are going up all over Eastern Europe.
Sweetheart, when was the first time you met him in the White House?
Oh, I met him in room 450. It was a briefing room in the old executive office building. And I was a director of the White House Speakers Bureau, which meant that I had to disappoint a lot of people because thousands of requests come in every day for the president to speak, and he can't take them, so they would come to me. And the other people that I had to disappoint were all the people, his political appointees, that I would ask to go out and speak for his programs. And they were busy people and had other things to do. And so I had to sort of con them into doing this for me. And I needed the president to help me with this. And he came in and gave a speech to these people. And at the end of the speech, he was such a brilliant communicator. He knew what he needed to do. He turned around and said, so the next time Judy calls you, please go and do what she asks you to do because she's doing it for me, as though we were old friends and had known each other.
Did they do it? Did they do it?
And they did. Well,
did everyone do it?
Everyone except you.
Oh, thank you.
Yes, you weren't at the meeting.
Because I was working for a madman. We always had fire drills. We had to do stuff. Steve Moore, that's trouble with supply-side economics. You always had to work at it because nobody believed it. I'm going to give you the last word.
Yeah, nobody believed it. Now everybody believes it, except the folks in the White House. And you know, I had 2 or 3 experiences meeting the president. And you know, he really did. For people who never had a chance to meet him, he really did have a twinkle in his eye, Larry, as you know, and you know, Judy. And you know, the other thing I'd say is I give a lot of talks on college campuses to young people, Craig, who weren't even born when Ronald Reagan was president. And when I say that I work for President Reagan, they get so excited. They said, "You really knew the man. You knew Ronald Reagan."
Right.
And you know, at the time, it didn't seem like such a big deal, but now it's the proudest thing on my resume.
Thank you very much. I'll just say this. He was a smart guy, and he knew the material back and forth. People should read these books now. Reagan's Communications, Reagan in his own hand. He knew exactly what he was doing, and he did his own research and writing. Thanks to Judy Kudlow. Thanks to Steve Moore. Thanks to Craig Shirley. Coming up, are we underselling this recovery right now? We enter into our Free Market Friday free-for-all. Before we go to break, One more look at President Reagan. Take a look and please listen.
My fellow Americans, on behalf of both of us, goodbye, and God bless each and every one of you, and God bless this country we love.